Imagine waking up tomorrow with a brain that works against you, a brain trained to worry, trained to compare, trained to doubt itself. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine waking up with a mind that naturally creates peace, naturally creates focus, naturally creates confidence. Not because your life became easier, not because you suddenly became more disciplined, but because you trained your brain differently. Here's something most people never realize. Your brain is changing every single day. Every thought you repeat, every behavior you repeat, every emotional reaction you repeat is slowly becoming automatic. In other words, whether you realize it or not, you are already training your brain. The question is, what exactly are you training it to do? And before this video ends, I'll share the one habit that psychologists repeatedly connect to long-term resilience. Ironically, it's also the habit most people abandon first. Let's begin. Most people believe confidence comes first, then action follows. But in reality, it's usually the other way around. Think about the last promise you made to yourself. Maybe you said you'd wake up earlier, start exercising, stop procrastinating, read more, spend less time on your phone. Now be honest. How many of those promises did you actually keep? Because every time you break a promise to yourself, something subtle happens. Your brain notices. It collects evidence. Evidence that your own words can't be trusted. Not consciously, but quietly, over time. And eventually, you stop believing yourself. That's why confidence isn't built through motivation. It's built through proof. Small proof. Repeated proof. Every time you do what you said you would do, your brain receives evidence. Evidence that says, I can trust myself. And that's where real confidence begins. Not with giant goals, not with dramatic transformations, but with tiny promises. 1 page, 1 push-up, 1 glass of water, 1 minute of effort. The goal isn't intensity, the goal is trust, because consistency creates trust, and trust changes everything. But here's where many people unknowingly destroy that progress. They spend their entire lives searching for problems, even when nothing is wrong. Have you ever noticed this? Everything is fine, nothing bad is happening, and suddenly your mind asks, what if something goes wrong? What if I fail? What if this doesn't last? What if I'm falling behind? Nothing happened. Yet your body reacts as if danger is already here. Your heart rate increases, your shoulders tense, your mind starts racing. Why? Because the human brain evolved to detect threats. Thousands of years ago, that kept us alive. Today, it often keeps us anxious. Many people become so accustomed to scanning for problems that they no longer know how to experience peace. Their mind is always preparing for the next disaster, even when no disaster exists. So here's a simple challenge. The next time you catch yourself worrying, pause, look around, and ask yourself one question. What problem exists right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, right now. In this exact moment, you might discover something surprising. The problem you're fighting only exists inside your imagination, and the moment you recognize that, you reclaim a little bit of your peace. But peace becomes difficult when your life feels unfinished, and for most people, everything feels unfinished. Unanswered messages, half-finished projects, goals they started months ago, decisions they never made, conversations they never had, and all of it creates mental weight. Psychologists have a name for this, the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain naturally keeps unfinished tasks active in your mind. That's why unfinished things follow you everywhere, into your evenings, into your weekends, even into your sleep. Most people think the solution is doing more, but that's not the solution. The solution is finishing something. Every single day, one thing, completely, not perfectly, completely. Reply to one message, organize one drawer, finish one responsibility, close one open loop, because every completion sends your brain a powerful signal. Progress is happening, movement is happening, Momentum is happening. Most people think anxiety comes from thinking too much, but that's not entirely true. Anxiety often comes from refusing to sit with your thoughts long enough to understand them. The moment discomfort appears, most people escape. They grab their phone, open social media, watch another video, check another notification, anything to avoid being alone with their own mind. And at first, it feels like relief. But every escape teaches your brain the same lesson. Discomfort is dangerous. Discomfort must be avoided. Discomfort must be escaped. And eventually, even the smallest uncomfortable thought becomes overwhelming. Not because it's powerful, but because you've never learned how to face it. So try something different. For 5 minutes. Sit quietly. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Don't fight them. Don't fix them. Don't judge them. Simply observe, like clouds passing through the sky. At first it may feel uncomfortable. That's normal. But over time, something remarkable happens. The thoughts that once controlled you begin to lose their power, because awareness weakens what avoidance strengthens. And the more comfortable you become with your own mind, the less fear controls your life. Now, before we continue, I want you to remember something. Information alone doesn't create change. You've probably watched hundreds of motivational videos, read books, saved quotes, taken notes, and yet, how much actually changed? Because inspiration is temporary. Transformation comes from repetition. That's why, if you're still here, you're already doing something most people won't. You're paying attention. You're investing in your mind. And if becoming mentally stronger matters to you, make sure you stay connected to ideas like these, not because one video changes your life, but because repeated reminders slowly change the way you think. And that changes everything. Now let's continue, because the next habit quietly determines how the rest of your day unfolds. Most people lose control of their attention within 5 minutes of waking up. Before their feet touch the floor, they're already consuming information, messages, emails, notifications, news, other people's opinions, other people's problems, other people's priorities. Imagine starting every day by handing someone else the steering wheel. That's exactly what most people do. And then they wonder why they feel distracted all day. Your morning is powerful because your brain is highly impressionable after waking. What enters first often influences everything that follows. So protect those first moments. Even 10 minutes matters. 10 minutes without your phone. 10 minutes of silence, reflection, reading, walking, planning, breathing, anything that belongs to you. Before you give your attention to the world, give it to yourself, because attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. And where attention goes, your life follows. The next habit sounds incredibly simple. In fact, it might sound too simple, but don't underestimate it. Small actions repeated long enough become identity. There is a silent habit that destroys more happiness than failure, more than mistakes, more than bad luck, and most people practice it every single day. Comparison. You see someone making more money, someone building a bigger business, someone getting better results, someone living the life you wish you had, and suddenly, what you already have feels smaller, not because your life changed, but because your perspective did. The dangerous thing about comparison is that there is no finish line. No matter how successful you become, someone will always be ahead. Someone richer, smarter, younger, more attractive, more accomplished. If your self-worth depends on being ahead of everyone else, you'll spend your entire life chasing a target that keeps moving, and eventually, you'll lose the ability to appreciate your own progress. But there is another option: curiosity. Instead of asking, "Why are they ahead of me?" ask, "What can they teach me?" That single shift changes everything. Comparison creates envy. Curiosity creates growth. Comparison closes the mind. Curiosity opens it. Comparison turns other people into threats. Curiosity turns them into teachers. The next time someone succeeds where you haven't, don't use their success as evidence that you're failing. Use it as evidence that growth is possible, because every person achieving something you want is proof that the path exists, and that's a very different way to see the world. Now let's talk about something most people never think about: the way they end their day. Most people drift into sleep. They don't consciously finish the day, they simply collapse into it. Their mind is still racing, still solving problems, still replaying conversations, still carrying stress, and then they wonder why they wake up exhausted. Imagine reading a book where every chapter ended halfway through a sentence. Eventually, you'd feel frustrated. Your brain feels the same way. It needs closure, a signal that says, "Today is complete." So create a simple evening ritual, nothing complicated. Write down tomorrow's priorities. Reflect on one thing that went well. Take a few deep breaths. Express gratitude for something small. Then let the day go, because your mind was never designed to carry yesterday into tomorrow. The quality of your sleep often depends on the quality of your mental ending, and a strong ending creates a stronger beginning. But there's another habit that may be even more important, especially in a world where most people consume all day long. Think about how much information enters your brain every day: videos, articles, podcasts, posts, news, messages, advice, opinions, more information than previous generations could have imagined. And yet, many people feel stuck. Why? Because consumption creates the illusion of progress. Learning feels productive, watching feels productive, scrolling feels productive. But information alone rarely changes your life. Action does. Creation does. Participation does. Try this experiment. For the next week, spend slightly more time creating than consuming. Write something, build something, design something, record something, teach something, solve something, create something that didn't exist before. Even if nobody sees it, even if it's imperfect, even if it's small. Because consumers observe life, creators engage with it. Consumers wait, creators act, and the human brain thrives when it feels involved, when it feels useful, when it feels capable, when it feels like it's contributing rather than simply absorbing. This is one reason creation often feels more fulfilling than endless entertainment. Creation proves that you can influence the world around you, and that feeling is powerful. But now we've arrived at the most important habit of all, the habit that quietly separates people who transform their lives from those who stay stuck for years. It's not discipline, it's not motivation, it's not talent. Most people misunderstand consistency. They think consistency means never missing a day, never failing, never falling behind, never making mistakes. And because of that belief, the moment they slip, they quit. They miss one workout and stop exercising altogether. They miss one morning routine and abandon the habit completely. They have one bad week and convince themselves they've failed. But that's not how transformation works. In fact, that's not how the brain works, because every human being loses momentum. Every human being gets distracted. Every human being falls off track. The difference isn't perfection. The difference is returning, again, and again, and again. Think about someone learning to walk. Imagine if a child fell down once and decided walking wasn't for them. It sounds ridiculous. Yet adults do this all the time. One mistake becomes a reason to stop. One setback becomes a reason to quit. One imperfect day becomes proof that change isn't possible. But the people who eventually transform their lives understand something different. They understand that failure isn't the opposite of progress. It's part of progress. Every setback contains a decision that asks, will you return? Because the habit that changes your life isn't waking up motivated every morning. It's coming back when motivation disappears. It's showing up after the bad day, after the missed opportunity, after the disappointment, after the mistake, after the week when everything fell apart. Anyone can continue when things are easy. Growth happens when things are difficult. And every time you return, something powerful happens inside your brain. You strengthen a new identity. Not the identity of someone who never struggles, but the identity of someone who never stays down. And that identity is almost impossible to stop, because eventually, Success stops being about talent. It stops being about luck. It stops being about perfect circumstances. It becomes about persistence, the simple willingness to come back. One more time. Think about the strongest people you've ever known. Not the most successful, not the most famous, the strongest, the people who inspire you, the people who seem unshakable. If you look closely, you'll discover something surprising. They weren't people who avoided hardship. They were people who kept returning after hardship, again and again and again. That's why this habit matters more than all the others, because every other habit in this video will eventually break. You'll forget. You'll get busy. Life will happen. That's inevitable. But when that day comes, remember this. You do not need to start over. You only need to return. One small action, one small decision, one step. That's all. Because transformation rarely happens in dramatic moments. It happens quietly, on ordinary days, when nobody is watching, when nobody is applauding, when nobody knows you're trying. It happens every time you choose to become slightly better than yesterday. And over time, those tiny choices become habits. Those habits become patterns. Those patterns become identity. And identity becomes destiny. The beautiful truth is that you don't need a completely different life to become a completely different person. You don't need more talent. You don't need more luck. You don't need the perfect opportunity. You need new repetitions, new patterns, new choices practiced long enough to become automatic, because your brain is always adapting, always learning, always changing. The only question is whether that change is intentional or accidental. 1 year from now, your brain will be different. That's guaranteed. The thoughts you repeat today will shape the person you become tomorrow. The habits you practice today will shape the life you experience tomorrow. The question isn't whether you're changing. The question is what you're changing into. So before you leave this video, choose one habit. Just one, not 10. One, and commit to practicing it today. Because one action becomes a routine, one routine becomes an identity, and one identity can completely change the direction of your life. And if this message found you at the right moment, don't let it become another video you forget tomorrow. Stay connected, keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, keep returning, because the life you want is rarely built through massive breakthroughs. It's built through small actions, repeated long enough to become who you are. And sometimes, an entirely different future begins with a single decision made today.